One of the hardest things about planning a road trip, especially planning a long road trip, is how you turn all of your research, all the data, all the places that you want to visit, things that you want to do, even places that you want to stay overnight, campsites, wild spots, whatever, and actually turn that into a proper plan. Not even necessarily an itinerary, but just a rough route, even if you do that from a day-to-day point of view. So here I'm going to show you how I take a load of research and a load of points and actually then turn that into a manageable road trip. Okay, so what's the next step? So you have done your research, you've used my road trip planners, or you have used your own internet research or books or other people telling you where to go, anything like that, and you have created or collated a list of places that you want to visit. And I always start with that. I always start with things I want to do or the places I want to see. That's how I build up my road trip. So you have got a list of things. Now you could have that on a paper and pen. You could do that using something like Google Maps or Apple Maps, where you can create the guides and you can have all the pins all over the place. Or you can use the new bit of software that I found that I adore, which is Wilder Trips. So I'm going to show you the next step. I'm going to use Wilder Trips for this. You can get a discount on this using my code, gives you 50% off, but you don't have to use the software to do this. This is the same process no matter what software, or like I say, even if you use a physical map, this is how you work through the next steps. So the first thing I do is collate all the different bits or all the different places that I want to go and visit. Now, sometimes I include campsites or places that I want to stay overnight if I've looked on Park for Night or Search for Sites or something like that. And other times I don't. I just focus on the place I want to go. And then I will look at the campsites and the exact routes closer to the time. So don't forget, this is just the base planning. Now, the thing I like about Wilder Trips is you can actually plan it in your days, and you can plan that based on how far you want to drive each day. But let me just give you an example. So here I am planning my time in the Lofoten Islands up in Norway, and I have just put a load of different points in there. So what I'm going to do is show you how you take these random points and make an actual itinerary or a rough plan out of them. So for me, I have to be at Tromsø Airport. Let me change the date. It's another reason that I like Wilder Trips. So I've got to pick up 28th, and I'm going to give myself about 5 days. So I'm going to go from the 28th, from the 23rd to the 28th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move Tromsø Airport down to the 28th. Now, another way that you can do that is click on these three dots in here and add a day before or a day after. But don't forget, if you are doing that, it will add a day into the itinerary, which means that if there is a set day you have to be somewhere, like in this example, I have to be there on the 28th, but because I added a day in before, it's actually pushed it down a bit. So make sure if you have got any set days you have to be anywhere, that when you do that, you don't move them off the days. So I'm going to be starting this at Narvik. There we go. Narvik as my starting point, because I'm going to come all the way down this E6 here, all the way down to here, and stop in at Narvik. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add Narvik, Norway in. You can add it on to day one and add it to your trip, and then I will pull up that to the top of day one. I think I put Narvik in further down here. Yeah, so I can just delete that from there. So what my plan is with the Lofoten Islands is going to go down the south side, and then I'm going to come up here, and then there's a boat that you can get across here, because apparently this bit's really, really pretty. Now, obviously, it hasn't put any points in, because I haven't put any points in on that route. So I'm just going to shift because my leg's going dead. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in a couple of points. So let's do this one here, and I'm going to add that on to day 5. So the day before I have to be in Tromsø. I'm going to add that in there. So that's added that point in there. And then I'm going to add the ferry goes to Andenes. So let's do that and do that to day 5 there. Add that into the trip. And then I'm just going to change that order, because obviously I'm working back from Tromsø here at the moment. So starting at point 1, and this is my rough plan. So now you can see that all these different points have got the numbers on, because they're just the order I put them in. There is no rhyme or reason at the moment to this. So I'm going to start down here and I'm going to finish up here. I think that was on the Saturday. This is going to be on the Friday. So that's about 5 hours driving, which is about right, from there up to Tromsø. Got to be there on the Saturday morning, so that works for me. So starting here, I'm just going to look at these points and put them in a rough kind of order. Now, when you're doing your research, you can do this as you go along. There's nothing to say you have to wait until the end. I do tend to wait until the end because then there are places I really, really want to go. So for example, Hawkland Beach is amazing, or looks amazing. I really, really want to go there. The Lofoten Beach Camp is somewhere that I've seen as a campsite, which is quite good, but that's only if I'm going to pay for a campsite on that night I'm at Wild Park. So if I am going to do that, I'm not going to need to stay there on that night. So these are just suggestions that I found throughout the research. Just a quick point as well while I'm editing this, don't forget it's just a plan. Unless you've booked and paid for campsites, you can change your mind on a day-to-day basis. For example, when I was looking at this, I was looking at the Lofoten Beach Camp as a campsite that I might stay at. Actually, I haven't. I ended up wild parking near that Hawkland Beach, which was amazing. But I didn't know when I was planning this exactly what I was going to do, what the weather was going to be like, and I've changed my trip so many times. On this trip to Norway and Sweden alone, based on the weather, based on snow prediction, based on places that I find as I'm travelling around. I've gone past a sign and I'm like, oh, that looks good, let's go see what that is. So this is just taking your research and putting it into a plan, but always make sure you add in some wiggle room for unexpected changes or the weather or just changing your mind. For example, if you don't want to pay for campsite, if you need or you don't need the services, then you don't have to. But this is just, like I say, it's just taking the research and turning all of those points and all of that stuff that you found into a rough, more manageable route and plan so that it's not completely overwhelming. So, like I say, you can do this on your Google Maps. You do not need a day-by-day itinerary. I've done road trips for years without worrying about a day-by-day itinerary, but if it helps you, then you can absolutely do that. Now, what was point 20? Oh, that was a cool campsite that I found. Let's say we're going to stay there. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the day before because it makes it easier for me. Hang on, add that in, add that in, and then turn those around. There we go. And then add that in. Right, so there we go. So that's day one now. And then, like I said, I've added in an extra day, which is going to push everything back. So I have to go down and delete that day. There we go. Right. So that's day one. And then we're going to come down to, I want to come down to A and I want to come down to these ones. So 11. You can see there the way that I'm doing this. Now I could meander up here and then meander all the way down. But what I'm going to do is go as far down to this bit as I can, then work my way back up the northern side. So I'm probably going to come down this road here. So let's point a point on, let's just do there. Add that on to day two. Add that to trip. So yeah, there we go. Now you can see that that's now giving me a rough route on there. Don't forget that these routes are just basic what a car could go down. So it's not guaranteeing that a motorhome could go down. This is why you need to then put these points into your sat nav. I never load up an entire trip into my sat nav. I do it day to day or sometimes even point to point. So when I am in this campsite here and I'm going to go to Henningsvær, I would just put Henningsvær in the sat nav on that day because it also takes into account traffic. It will take into account any roadworks. It will take into account any, if there's been an accident and the road's been closed or anything like that. You can't plan that months in advance. You just can't. So next thing that I'm going to do then is just put a bit of order into all this lot. So let's do, hang on, Hamnoy Scenic Viewpoint. Come back. There we go. 19 Rhine. Like I say, I just randomly put these in the order that I found them. Oh, and one thing I haven't got actually in there is A, which is, it's like right at the end of this road. There we go. So come down to there. So that is the next part of the plan. And again, I haven't got a clue where I'm going to stay on any of these bits yet. So you can see now the points are in an order. Now I can, if the weather's nice, what am I up to in terms of driving time? 4 hours. Yeah, so I could do this detour. This is another hike that I could choose to do if I wanted to. That would be 2 hikes in one day, but that's not that bad. But that's 4 hours and 42 minutes driving roughly. That's based on the speed limits of the road. And so that's not that bad when you're on a bit of a deadline. There we go. And then that on Friday. Cool. So there we go. So that is my rough plan, sort of organised. So I have got, starting here on the Monday, got to drive all the way down to here, which is about 3 hours and 45 minutes. Then I have going to drive all the way down here and then up on the next day. So that's 4 hours and 42. That's the way I like wilder trips. You can see roughly what you've planned in. And if that's reasonable, so that's 4 hours, let's call it 5 hours of driving, plus quite a few places to stop at there. So given that I have then added all that in and I've still got Thursday, I could split this and stop somewhere down near A, so somewhere down here, and then do all this on the next day. There is wiggle room here, but this is why organising them into a rough sort of guide will help you see how much time you've got, where you've got a day that you can just chill out, where you've got days that you've got to do quite a long drive. I find it really, really useful. Now, again, you don't have to use this software. You can do this with a map. You can do this with Google Maps. If you organise your points, and then you can literally put them into Google Maps or Apple Maps or even your sat nav, and it will tell you a rough driving thing for each day. You can do it that way if you don't want to pay for the software. That's not a problem at all. So there are ways of organising your places. Now, obviously, when you get to do massive trips, let me just show you this. As you can see, I have a lot of these. So here we go. This is what my actual whole trip for Sweden and Norway looks like. And this is just literally how it started. So it started with points that I wanted to go see. I've organised obviously most of them. When it gets to big trips like this, I mean, what am I up to? 75 points. It takes a while to organise all the routes and things. And remember, like I said, those routes are not guaranteed for motorhomes or larger vehicles. So you do need to be very, very clear on your sat nav. Make sure you've got a proper sat nav that's got your vehicle dimensions in it. But that's how I go from using the road trip planners or doing your own research or whatever, and finding points and finding places that you want to go and visit, and then taking all of that data, all of that information, and organising it into an actual plan. Hope you found that useful. Don't forget, I've now got 5 different road trip planners, soon to be 6, which have got tons of research and planning and itinerary ideas and places to visit for lots of different countries around the UK and Europe. I will leave the link for that in the notes. If you want to know more about planning road trips and making sure they go smoothly, this video will be really useful for you. You might also find this video helpful as well. If you want to see more videos about motorhoming and road trips around the UK and Europe, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care. Bye.